AITA for telling my mom's boyfriend his son is not my responsibility? I, 19F, live with my mom, 45F. It's just been the two of us since my dad passed away when I was 13. Back then, it felt like the world had cracked open and swallowed everything I knew. But my mom and I, we clung to each other like two people hanging from the same ledge. We made it through. It wasn't easy. There were nights she'd cry in the kitchen after she thought I'd gone to bed, and mornings where I'd pretend not to notice how puffy her eyes were. We became a team. Grocery shopping, fixing things, late-night TV shows, it was always us. That's why when she started dating again, it shook something in me. Not because I didn't want her to be happy. I did. God, I did. But after years of just mom and me, the idea of someone else stepping into that space felt wrong. Like an intruder moving into a house you built with your bare hands. His name was Steve. She met him at work. He's a contractor who'd come in to handle some renovations. I remember the first time she mentioned him. She was almost bashful, smiling at her phone while stirring spaghetti sauce. His name's Steve, she said casually, like it was no big deal. He's got a son, around 9, I think. Tyler. I shrugged. Cool. And at the time, it was cool. She deserved to smile again. But I remember the first time I met him, and I can't lie, something felt off. He wasn't rude. He was actually overly nice. But the kind of nice that feels like it's rehearsed. He complimented everything, the house, my cooking. I didn't even cook, the neighborhood, even our cat. He laughed too loud, talked too much, and had this way of putting his hand on my mom's shoulder every time she said something, like he needed to claim her in the conversation. Tyler, his son, came over for dinner that night too. He was 9, but if you closed your eyes, you'd think a whole kindergarten class had walked in. He talked nonstop. Questions, stories, random noises, humming, tapping. I swear the kid didn't stop moving for a second. At one point, while I was washing dishes, he started throwing a stress ball at the wall repeatedly, laughing every time it bounced. It hit a photo frame once, nearly knocking it over. Hey, bud, maybe not in here, I said gently. He froze, gave me this weird look, like I'd just taken his favorite toy and turned back to Steve. Dad, she yelled at me. I didn't even yell. I just stood there awkwardly, trying to keep my face neutral while Steve chuckled and said, "He's just high energy. He means well." My mom looked at me and mouthed, "It's fine." That night, after they left, I asked her, "So, you really like him?" She smiled, almost defensively. "He's kind. And he understands what it's like to be a single parent." I didn't say what I was thinking. That kindness doesn't mean compatibility, and understanding doesn't mean fit. But I wanted her to be happy. So, I stayed quiet. A few months went by. Their relationship moved fast, too fast. Suddenly, Steve was at our house almost every night. Tyler too. I'd come home from work to find him sprawled on the couch watching cartoons, leaving crumbs all over the place, while my mom and Steve cooked dinner together like some domestic sitcom. I started feeling like a guest in my own home. One night, I got home after a long shift at the coffee shop. It was around 9:30 p.m., and I was exhausted. The living room was littered with toys, Legos, action figures, even a half-eaten sandwich on the coffee table. I sighed, started picking stuff up, and then heard my mom laughing in the kitchen. I peeked in. Steve was behind her, hands on her waist, whispering something in her ear. She looked happy, really happy. I wanted to be okay with it. I really did. But then she noticed me. "Oh, hey, honey. We ordered pizza. There's some left if you want." Tyler piped up from the living room. "I want another slice." "Go ahead, sweetie," she said. I looked at the empty pizza box on the counter and realized there was one slice left. He grabbed it. Of course. I went in my room, shut the door, and stared at the ceiling until the noise faded. A few weeks later, she sat me down. So, she began, twirling a strand of hair nervously. Steve's been having some trouble finding a new place. His lease ended, and, well, he asked if he and Tyler could stay here for a bit. I blinked. Like, for how long? "Just temporarily," she said quickly. "Until he gets back on his feet. Maybe a couple of months." "Mom," I said slowly, "we only have 2 bedrooms." "I know, but Tyler can sleep on the couch for now." It's just temporary. I should have said no. I wanted to say no. But the way she looked at me, hopeful, nervous, fragile, it felt like saying no would mean taking her happiness away. So I said, okay. She smiled in relief. Thank you, sweetheart. I promise it won't be for long. That was 6 months ago. They're still here. And now, somehow, I've become the babysitter. It started small. Can you keep an eye on Tyler while Steve runs to the store? Or, hey, can you help him with his homework while I cook dinner? Then it became, can you pick him up from school? I've got a late shift, and can you take him to soccer practice? Steve's tired. At first, I didn't mind. I mean, it's a kid. How hard could it be? But Tyler is a lot. He doesn't listen. He talks back. He'll throw things when he's upset. One time, he stomped his foot so hard the floor shook because I told him to turn off the TV. The worst part is my mom just excuses it all. He's been through a lot, she always says. He just needs patience. But I've been through a lot too. And apparently, no one's offering me patience. One night, I came home from work, drained and starving, and the kitchen was a mess. Pots, plates, half-cooked spaghetti sauce everywhere. Tyler was at the table, coloring on a placemat. I asked, hey, where's your dad? He shrugged. He said he had to meet someone. Where's my mom? She's at work. So it was just me and Tyler. I started cleaning up, trying to ignore the fact that he was now using permanent marker on the tablecloth. Tyler, can you not? Dad lets me, he said flatly, not even looking up. Yeah, well, I'm not your dad. He froze, looked up. His face twisted into this defiant little smirk. Then you can't tell me what to do. Before I could respond, he scribbled a big line down the middle of the tablecloth, a thick black streak. I took a deep breath, turned away, and counted to 5. I didn't yell. I didn't even scold him. I just said, okay, I'm done cleaning up after this. When Steve got home, I told him what happened. He laughed. Boys will be boys, he said, ruffling Tyler's hair. I stared at him. He ruined the tablecloth, Steve. It's just a tablecloth, he said with that fake chuckle. No harm done. I walked away before I said something I'd regret. But it didn't stop there. The next week, I woke up at 6 a.m. because Tyler was in my room. He'd gone through my dresser drawers looking for paper to draw on. When I told my mom, she brushed it off. He's just curious. Curious? About my underwear drawer? Every time I tried to set a boundary, I became the difficult one. The moody teen. The one who can't adapt. Meanwhile, Steve acted like he lived there. He'd leave dishes everywhere, adjust the thermostat to freezing temperatures, and criticize how I folded laundry I didn't even do for him. It got to the point where I started staying out late on purpose. Sitting in my car after work, scrolling my phone, just to avoid going home. That's when I realized something had changed. It wasn't my home anymore. Then came the night that broke me. It was a Friday, around 8 p.m. I was in my room studying when I heard my mom knock softly. Hey, honey, she said gently. Can you do me a favor? Steve's got an early meeting tomorrow, and I'm working a double. Could you keep an eye on Tyler for the day? I paused. Like, the whole day? Just until around 6. He'll keep himself entertained, I promise. I wanted to scream. I really did. But instead, I nodded. Fine. The next morning, I woke up to Tyler screaming. Apparently, we were out of his favorite cereal. I tried to offer toast, eggs, literally anything, but he threw a full tantrum. Like, flailing on the floor, kicking his legs, yelling, I hate this house. I stepped over him and went to make coffee. 10 minutes later, I came back and he'd poured orange juice all over the kitchen counter. When I asked why, he said, because you ignored me. I just froze. I didn't know what to do anymore. When my mom got home that night, I told her everything. She sighed. He's just acting out. You know how kids are. Mom, he destroyed the kitchen. He's disrespectful. He doesn't listen. Maybe if you connected with him more. Connected? He's not my responsibility, Mom. Her eyes widened. The room went quiet. Then she said, he's part of this family now. You can't just pick and choose when to care. I laughed bitterly. Part of whose family? Yours and Steve's? Because last I checked, I didn't sign up for this. She looked hurt, but I couldn't stop. I didn't ask for him to live here. I didn't ask for Steve to move in. I didn't ask to become a babysitter. Her expression hardened. You're being selfish. I stared at her. My mom, the person who used to say we were a team, now defending a man and his kid who'd turned our home into chaos. I went in my room, shut the door, and cried. For the first time in years, I felt completely alone. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, she's barely talked to me. Steve walks around like he owns the place, and Tyler, well, he's been worse. Yesterday, I came home to find my laptop on the floor. Screen cracked. Tyler said he was just looking at YouTube. Steve said it was an accident. My mom told me not to make a big deal. And I realized something. They're never going to see me as anything but convenient. The daughter who helps. The built-in babysitter. The one who should understand. I'm tired of understanding. I don't know what to do anymore. I love my mom, but it feels like she's replaced me with this new version of a family that doesn't even include me. And every time I try to talk about it, I'm overreacting. I can feel something breaking between us. Slowly, quietly, like a rope fraying strand by strand. Part of me wants to pack a bag and leave. Part of me feels guilty for even thinking that. But I can't keep living like this. Not when I'm treated like the problem for setting boundaries in my own home. Not when my mom's happiness means I have to lose my peace. At first, I tried to help out. Honestly, I didn't mind. I told myself, it's just for a little while. If mom needed me to pick up some slack while she worked and Steve got settled, fine. I could handle that. So when she asked me to watch Tyler while they went out for dinner, I said sure. When she asked me to help him with homework because Steve was too tired after work, I agreed. But over time, it wasn't helping anymore. It was expected. It went from, can you keep an eye on Tyler for a bit? To, you'll need to pick Tyler up from school today. From, he just needs someone to sit with him while I finish my shift. To, make sure he eats dinner. I'm working late. Before I knew it, I was rearranging my entire life around Steve's son. I'm 19. I work part-time at a coffee shop and take community college classes, both things that already stretch me thin. But somehow, I became the one constantly adjusting. If Steve had to work late, I was expected to handle pickup. If Tyler got sick, I was the one who stayed home. If mom needed to run errands, I became the built-in babysitter again. Every time I tried to bring it up, my mom would give me this tired, guilty smile and say, honey, it's just temporary. Steve's under a lot of stress right now. Tyler really looks up to you. That line, Tyler really looks up to you, became her excuse for everything. It made me feel trapped between guilt and resentment. Like I was supposed to be grateful for the privilege of being overworked and ignored. Then came the night that really changed something in me. I got off my shift late around 9:15 and my phone was dead. I drove home, dead tired, dreaming about microwaving leftovers and passing out. When I walked in, the house was dark except for the faint glow of the TV. Tyler was sitting on the couch, knees pulled to his chest, crying. Hey, what's wrong? I asked immediately, putting my bag down. He looked up at me with wet cheeks. I'm hungry. I froze. Where's your dad? Or my mom? They went out, he sniffled. They said they'd be right back, but it's been forever. I checked the kitchen, no food made, nothing even thawed. The clock said 9:42. I swear, my chest tightened with this mix of anger and disbelief. They left a 9-year-old alone just so they could go out drinking. So I made him mac and cheese, sat with him until he finished, brushed his teeth, tucked him in, and waited. And waited. They stumbled in around midnight, laughing too loud, reeking of alcohol. My mom blinked at me like she hadn't expected me to be up. Oh, hey, honey. You're still awake. Where were you? I asked, keeping my voice even. Steve groaned, dropping onto the couch. Relax. We just went for a quick drink. I stared at him. You left your kid alone. He was crying when I got home. My mom sighed, rubbing her temples. Honey, it's fine. He's okay, isn't he? You're overreacting. Overreacting, I said, my voice rising. You told me this was temporary, that I wouldn't have to keep doing this. She looked tired. Steve's just under a lot of stress right now. He's trying his best. Mom, he's not trying anything. You're the one covering for him, and I'm the one picking up the slack. Her tone hardened. You're being unfair. Tyler really looks up to you. He needs stability, and you're so good with him. That's when it hit me. She wasn't asking anymore. She was expecting. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, trying not to cry. I could hear Steve snoring through the wall and Tyler's faint sleep noises down the hall, and I realized something brutal. I was living in a house full of people, and yet I'd never felt lonelier. It's a weird kind of pain, watching your mom, the person who used to protect you, start prioritizing someone else's comfort over your well-being. I missed her. The version of her who used to check on me when I stayed up too late studying. Who used to notice when I was upset without me saying a word. Now she barely noticed when I came home. And when she did, it was usually to ask if I could help out with Tyler again. I tried to make peace with it for a while. Told myself maybe I was overreacting. Maybe she was right. It's just a transition period, just until Steve got back on his feet. But the more I looked around, the less that made sense. Steve wasn't getting back on his feet. He was getting comfortable. His stuff had slowly taken over the house, tools in the garage, his clothes in the hallway closet, his shampoo in the bathroom. He even replaced our TV without asking, saying, "This one's better for Tyler's gaming setup." And my mom let him. She let him take over. The next big blow came about a week later. It was a Wednesday, my busiest day. I had a midterm in the morning, a shift in the afternoon, and a group project meeting after work. That morning, as I was rushing to get ready, my mom knocked on my door. "Hey, honey," she said softly, the way she always did when she wanted a favor. "What's up?" I asked, zipping my bag. "Steve's got to leave early, and Tyler doesn't have school today, teacher in service thing. Can you stay with him?" I froze mid-motion. "Mom, I can't. I have an exam, and then I work all day. Can't you just—" "No," I said firmly. "I can't miss this." She looked torn. Okay. Maybe I'll call my sister, see if she can take him for the day." I breathed out relieved. "Thanks." By the time I came home that night, exhausted but proud of how my exam went, the look on my mom's face told me everything. She hadn't called anyone. Tyler was asleep on the couch, surrounded by snack wrappers. Steve was watching TV with a beer in his hand. When he saw me, he smiled like nothing was wrong. "Hey, champ. Long day." I ignored him. "Where's Mom?" "At work," he said lazily. "She said you'd feed Tyler when you got back." Something snapped. "Are you serious? You've been here all day." He looked up, eyes half-lidded. "I had a headache. Needed to rest." "You rested while your kid ate chips for dinner?" He shrugged. He didn't complain. I wanted to throw something. But instead, I clenched my fists, walked to my room, and slammed the door. I could feel the anger shaking my hands. This wasn't temporary. This was normal now. And I hated it. The next morning, I tried to talk to my mom again. She was making coffee, already dressed for work. "Mom, we need to talk," I said quietly. She gave me a wary look. "About what?" "About Steve. About Tyler. About everything." Her shoulders tensed. "If this is about last night, it's about every night. About me doing everything while he does nothing. About how I can't even focus on school anymore because I'm constantly being pulled into raising someone else's kid." She sighed, turning to face me. "You're being dramatic. No one's asking you to raise him." "Yes, you are." I snapped. "You leave me with him every time you're gone. You make me rearrange my classes. You expect me to drop everything when he needs something." Her expression hardened again. "You're part of this family, too. We help each other." "Family?" I repeated. "Steve's not my family. Tyler's not my responsibility. I didn't choose this." For a second, I thought she'd soften. But instead, her face closed off completely. "You're being selfish," she said quietly. "You've always had trouble sharing me. Maybe this is about you not wanting me to move on." That hit harder than she probably realized. I couldn't even speak for a second. My throat burned. "That's not fair," I whispered. "I'm happy you're moving on. I just don't want to lose my life in the process." But she'd already grabbed her bag. "I don't have time for this right now." And just like that, she left. The silence in the house felt different after that. Heavier. I started avoiding both of them. Leaving early, coming home late, eating dinner in my room. Steve didn't seem to care. In fact, he seemed to like it better that way, less teenage attitude to deal with, as he once put it. But Tyler noticed. He'd knock on my door sometimes, asking, "Are you mad at me?" And I'd tell him no, that I was just busy. The truth is, I wasn't mad at him. I was mad at the situation. Mad that a little boy was being raised by a man who didn't care and a woman who was too blinded by love to see what it was doing to her own daughter. Then, one night, everything boiled over. I got home from class to find the kitchen a disaster again. Cereal all over the floor, milk spilled, dishes piled in the sink. Steve was in the living room, watching TV. "Hey," I said sharply, "can you clean up after Tyler? This place is disgusting." He looked at me lazily. "You can handle it." "No, Steve. I'm not your maid." He chuckled. "Relax. Don't talk to me like that in my house." I froze. His house? I stared at him. "This isn't your house." He smiled, slow, smug, deliberate. "Sure feels like it." That was the moment I knew something had to give. Because if I didn't stand up soon, I wasn't just going to lose my patience. I was going to lose myself. A few weeks later, things exploded. By then, I was exhausted emotionally, mentally, everything. The house didn't even feel like mine anymore. I'd wake up to Steve's coffee mug in the sink, Tyler's toys in the hallway, and my mom acting like all of this was perfectly normal. I'd started avoiding home as much as I could. Library, campus lounge, even sitting in my car just to breathe in peace. But that Saturday, I had to stay in. I had a big presentation due Monday, worth nearly half my grade, and I needed the weekend to focus. I told my mom that clearly on Friday night. "Please," I said, "I just need this weekend quiet. No distractions." She smiled, distracted, scrolling on her phone. "Of course, honey. I'll keep Tyler busy." I wanted to believe her. Saturday morning rolled around, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of motivation. I woke up early, made coffee, sat at my desk with my laptop open, ready to work. Then, just as I started writing, I heard pounding on my door. "Hello." I blinked. "Tyler, can I come in?" I sighed, rubbing my temples. "What's up?" "I'm hungry," he whined through the door. "Ask your dad. He's sleeping." Of course he was. I opened the door. Steve was passed out on the couch, snoring, a beer can on the coffee table even though it was 9 a.m. And Mom? Gone. I checked my phone. There was a text from her. "Heading to brunch with the girls. Back around noon, Red Heart." Brunch. She'd gone out again, after promising to keep things quiet so I could study. I wanted to scream. Instead, I made Tyler cereal, set it on the counter, and went back to my room. I tried to work. I really did. But every 5 minutes, he was back. "Can you play with me?" "Where's Mom?" I spilled the milk. "Can we go to the park?" "I'm bored." I'd clean, reassure, redirect, rinse, repeat. My patience was hanging by a thread. After the 5th interruption, I looked at my notes, soaked, the pages wrinkled and sticky from spilled milk, and something in me just snapped. "Tyler," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, "I can't play right now. I have a big project due. Please go ask your dad." He frowned. "But he's tired." "Then let him rest. I need to get this done." He huffed and stomped off. For a moment, I thought it was over. Then I heard him in the living room. "Dad, she won't play with me." Steve's groggy voice carried down the hall. "Tell her to stop yelling at you." I froze. Yelling. Next thing I knew, Steve was standing at my doorway, hair messy, eyes still half asleep, but already full of attitude. "What's going on?" he demanded. I set my pen down. "I'm trying to work. Tyler keeps interrupting me. Can you just keep him busy for a bit?" He scoffed. "You're home anyway. What's the big deal?" "The big deal is I have an assignment due." I told Mom I needed this weekend to focus. He crossed his arms. "You're basically his big sister. You can multitask." That line. It hit me like a slap. I stood up, my heart pounding. I'm not his sister. I'm not his mom. I'm not his babysitter. And I'm definitely not your backup parent. Tyler is your kid, not my responsibility. The silence that followed was thick. Steve just stared at me, a little shocked, a little offended, then shook his head and muttered, "Wow, real mature." He walked off, muttering something about attitude problems. My hands were shaking, but for the first time in months, I felt like I'd said something I needed to say all along. Of course, that feeling didn't last, because when Mom came home that afternoon, she already had that look. The one that said Steve told me everything. She dropped her purse on the counter and crossed her arms. "We need to talk." I didn't even get to open my mouth before she launched in. "I heard you yelled at Steve this morning, and you upset Tyler." I blinked. "Wait, what?" "I didn't yell. I told Tyler to ask his dad for help because I was working. Steve said you told him off. That you said Tyler wasn't your responsibility. Because he's not." I shot back. "He's Steve's kid. I've been doing everything while he sleeps or drinks or pretends he's too tired to be a dad." Her eyes narrowed. "You didn't need to be cruel about it. You hurt his feelings." "His feelings?" I laughed bitterly. "What about mine? What about the fact that I can't focus on school or breathe in my own house without someone needing something from me?" She exhaled sharply, shaking her head. "You don't understand. He's under a lot of stress right now. He's been through a lot." "Yeah," I said, my voice trembling. "So have I." That shut her up for a moment. But then she straightened, that calm, patronizing tone creeping back into her voice. "You owe him an apology." I froze. "I'm not apologizing." Her eyes flashed. "You embarrassed him in front of Tyler." "I don't care. He should be embarrassed. He's a grown man who can't handle his own kid." She slammed her hand on the counter. "Enough." The sound echoed through the kitchen. I flinched. "You will not talk about him that way," she said quietly, dangerously. "He's part of this family now." I stared at her, really looked at her. The woman who used to hold me when I cried after Dad died. The woman who promised me we'd always be a team. And all I could think was, who even are you anymore? I didn't say another word. I just walked to my room, shut the door, and locked it. My chest felt tight, my hands were shaking, and I couldn't tell if I was angry or heartbroken or both. I could hear them talking later, muffled voices through the walls. Tyler's laughter, Steve's fake soothing tone, my mom's quiet agreement. I didn't eat dinner that night. I just sat there, staring at my laptop screen, my unfinished presentation forgotten. And that's when it hit me, my mom wasn't going to fix this. She chose this. She'd rather keep Steve happy than listen to me. The next morning, I found a note on my door. It was written in my mom's careful handwriting. "I know things have been tense, but please try to get along with Steve. I love you both, and I don't want to be stuck in the middle. He's trying his best. Let's just all make an effort, okay? Red heart." I read it twice, then crumpled it up and tossed it in the trash. Because I realized something. She wasn't in the middle. She was on his side. And I was just collateral. After that, something in me changed. I stopped trying to talk to her. I stopped helping. If she asked me to watch Tyler, I said no. If Steve made some comment, I ignored it. I did my own laundry, cooked my own meals, stayed out of their way. It didn't take long for the tension to become unbearable. Steve started making little passive-aggressive comments about kids these days and ungrateful attitudes. Mom would sigh and say things like, "Can you just try to be nice?" But I wasn't being mean. I was just done. Done playing the role of the helpful daughter. Done sacrificing my peace so everyone else could be comfortable. Done pretending this was temporary when it clearly wasn't. The final straw came a week later. I got home from class and found my door wide open. Tyler was inside my room, playing with my makeup. My things were scattered everywhere. My journals, my laptop, my clothes. He'd drawn all over my notebook with markers. When I shouted his name, he jumped and started crying. Steve came running in, and instead of apologizing, he yelled at me. "Why are you screaming at him?" "He's a kid." "Because he's in my room." I shouted back. "He ruined my stuff." "It's just stuff," he said coldly. "You need to calm down." I wanted to hit something. "Get out," I said, voice shaking. "Get out of my room." He rolled his eyes. "You really need to grow up." That's when my mom came in right on cue. She took one look at the mess, then at me. And instead of saying anything to Steve or Tyler, she sighed. "Honey, it's not a big deal. We'll clean it up." Not a big deal. My space invaded, my things ruined, and somehow I was overreacting again. I just walked out. No yelling, no tears, just numb. Because what was the point anymore? That night, I started looking at apartments. I didn't know where I'd go or how I'd afford it yet, but I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't stay there. Not when I was being treated like a stranger in my own home. Not when the people I loved didn't see me at all. That night, everything came to a head. Dinner was tense before it even began. I'd cooked again, because apparently no one else thought about food until it was already late. Steve was on his phone, Tyler was glued to a tablet, and Mom was acting like everything was perfectly fine. The silence was thick, like everyone was waiting for someone else to start something. Finally, Mom cleared her throat. "So, I've been thinking," she said, in that too bright tone she uses when she's about to start one of her family meeting speeches. "We've all had a rough few weeks. I think it's time we try to work together better as a family." I just nodded, keeping my eyes on my plate. She took my silence as an invitation. That means helping out more, supporting each other, and not keeping score over every little thing. I could feel the heat rising in my chest. "Fine," I said quietly. "But I'm not going to keep parenting Tyler when it's not my job." Steve's head snapped up. "Excuse me." "You heard me," I said, looking right at him. "I'm not his parent. I've been cooking, cleaning, babysitting, and somehow I'm still the one getting yelled at when I draw a line." He scoffed. "You don't understand how hard it is being a single parent." I laughed bitterly. "Actually, I do. My mom did it for 6 years. Alone. She worked 2 jobs, took care of me, and never once made me feel like I had to raise myself. Or anyone else." That shut him up for half a second, but Mom's face immediately hardened. "Don't talk to him like that," she snapped. "Like what?" I said, my voice shaking. "Like the truth." She slammed her fork down, the sound sharp and loud enough to make Tyler flinch. "Enough. You're being incredibly selfish lately. Steve and Tyler are part of this family now, and it's time you started acting like it." My stomach dropped. There it was, the sentence I'd been dreading. I looked at her, really looked at her, and all I could see was a woman so desperate to hold on to her new relationship that she'd forgotten what family actually meant. "Mom," I said quietly, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm not against Tyler. He's a kid. None of this is his fault. But I deserve boundaries. I deserve respect. I can't just keep being everyone's stand-in parent while you and Steve play house." But she didn't hear me. She was too angry, too defensive, too gone. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," she said coldly. "If you can't accept them, maybe you should think about what that says about you." That was it. Something in me broke. I pushed my chair back and stood up. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear myself speak. "If you expect me to keep raising your boyfriend's kid," I said, voice trembling, "I'll move out." The entire room went silent. Tyler looked confused, glancing between us. Steve froze mid-bite. Mom just stared at me like I'd slapped her. "You don't mean that," she whispered. "I do." For once, she had nothing to say. I picked up my plate, dumped it in the sink, and walked out of the kitchen. Behind me, I heard her start to cry softly. Steve said something under his breath, but I didn't stick around to hear it. I went straight to my room, shut the door, and sat on my bed, shaking. I didn't know where I'd go or how I'd afford it, but I meant what I said. Because that night, something finally clicked for me. Family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up for you. And right now, the only person showing up for me was me. I didn't leave that night. Not right away, anyway. I waited until the next morning, packed a small duffel with clothes, my laptop, and some toiletries, and left before anyone woke up. I didn't want another confrontation. I just needed air. I crashed on my friend Kayla's couch. She didn't ask many questions at first, just handed me a blanket and said, "Stay as long as you need." And honestly, I needed that more than anything. The first night, I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying everything that had happened. Mom's face when I said I'd move out. The silence that followed. Tyler's confused little eyes darting between us. I started to wonder if I was being dramatic. If maybe I'd overreacted. But then I thought about all the nights I'd come home exhausted from work, only to find Tyler waiting for me because no one else remembered to feed him. I thought about missing classes to pick him up, about the guilt trips, about Mom looking at me like I was the one breaking the family apart when all I wanted was to stop feeling like the substitute adult. That was when the anger came back, the exhaustion, the sadness, all of it. For the next few days, Mom's texts didn't stop. Emma, I can't believe you just walked out like that. Emma, you're being really immature. Emma, family means helping each other, not running away when things get hard. At first, I ignored her. Then I finally sent one text back. Family means respecting each other's roles, not using each other. She didn't reply right away. 2 days later, she texted again, shorter this time. Emma, Steve and Tyler will be staying at his place for now. We all need space. For now. That phrase said everything. She framed it like it was a temporary fix, but I could read between the lines. She knew. She realized, deep down, that things had gone too far, that I wasn't wrong to be angry. But admitting that out loud would mean admitting she'd failed to set boundaries. And Mom, she's not good at that. I went back home a few days later, mostly because I needed my clothes and school stuff. The apartment felt weirdly quiet. Steve's shoes were gone. Tyler's toys weren't scattered across the living room anymore. Mom was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping coffee like nothing had happened. We talked, sort of. She said she didn't want bad blood between us. I said I didn't either. But when I tried to explain why I'd hit my breaking point, she just nodded without really meeting my eyes. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't forgiveness either. Just polite silence. Since then, things have been awkward. She's been distant, civil, but cold, like she's walking on eggshells around me. We still talk, but it's surface level. How was class? Did you eat? I'm going to bed early. Stuff like that. Sometimes I hear her on the phone with Steve in the other room. I can tell things between them are tense. I don't think they broke up, but I doubt it's the fairy tale she was hoping for. Every once in a while, I get a text from a random number, usually something like, "Hi, my name. I drew this." It's a picture of a house, or a stick figure family, or a big yellow sun. Tyler must have gotten my number from Mom. I always reply and thank him. He's a sweet kid. None of this is his fault. But every time I see his name pop up, I get that same knot in my chest, guilt, sadness, frustration, all tangled together. Because I do care about him. I just never wanted to be responsible for him. I love my mom. I always will. But I can't keep sacrificing my own peace to hold everything together while she chases something that's falling apart. And yeah, sometimes I lie awake wondering if I pushed too hard, if maybe I could have handled things differently. But then I remember sitting in that kitchen, exhausted, being told I was selfish for not wanting to raise someone else's kid. And I remind myself, saying no doesn't make me selfish. It makes me human. So yeah, that's where things stand. Mom and I are figuring it out, I guess. Steve and Tyler are at his place. I'm back in my room, trying to rebuild whatever version of normal I can. It's quieter now. Lonelier too, but also peaceful. I don't regret standing up for myself. I just wish it hadn't come to that. So Reddit, AITA for telling my mom's boyfriend that his son isn't my responsibility